We used your money, $256,000 for the condo. That was the sticky note waiting for me on the fridge, crooked, stained with something greasy, and signed with a smiley face like it was a casual favor, not the theft of 7 years of my life. No candles. No music. No one hiding behind furniture yelling surprise. Just silence, a half-eaten cake in the trash, and my name erased from my own celebration. My name is Jenna. And from wherever you're watching this, stay with me. Have you ever come home expecting love, and instead found a receipt for your own betrayal? Because I flew 16 hours, crossed oceans and time zones, counting every second until I'd be home with the people I loved, and what I found instead was a war I didn't even know I'd already lost. I stood in the doorway with my suitcase still in hand. The air inside the house was stale, abandoned, like no one had been there in days. My balloons, the ones I paid for in advance, were deflated on the floor like crumpled apologies. The kitchen? Half cleaned. The dining table? Empty. And on the fridge, that note. We used your money, $256,000 for the condo. Happy early birthday. Heart's suit. A few minutes later, my sister's text came in. As casual as ever. Thanks for the upgrade, sis. You're the best. White heart. I swear, I didn't even feel the heartbreak yet. It was too soon. What I felt first was cold. Because I knew that the only way they could have accessed that account was through my emergency login. The one I gave my mom when I was stationed overseas, just in case something ever happened to me. Apparently, what happened was greed. And they didn't even try to hide it. No one was there to greet me. No one came running down the stairs. I checked the bedrooms, all empty. Closets cleared. Drawers left half open, like they had packed in a rush or didn't care. Then I noticed the calendar on the counter. My birthday? Crossed out. Instead, a sticky label over it read, "Closing day, keys to condo." They didn't plan a party. They planned a heist. I sat on the couch, the same one I slept on during college summers, the one I bought secondhand and shipped across the country when I bought this house, and I opened my banking app. The withdrawal was right there. $256,000 wired out. Not over time. Not in chunks. One transfer. All gone. My renovation fund, my retirement savings, my dream cafe I was finally ready to build. Gone. I didn't cry. I didn't scream. Instead, I scrolled down until I reached the screen that said transfer property rights. Because a year ago, in preparation for my cafe, I had converted the house into a business holding, which meant, technically, it was now an asset. And that asset was liquid. At 4:42 a.m., while the jet lag still pulsed in my temples and the smell of betrayal clung to my clothes, I tapped my screen and listed the house. Then I sent my sister a reply. Happy condo life. Enjoy it while it lasts. Because they thought this was the end of the story. But in the attic, in a dusty, unmarked box, I was about to find something that would flip the entire script. The attic was the one place they hadn't touched. I climbed up there in the early morning silence, half out of instinct, half out of avoidance. I didn't want to be downstairs, not where the betrayal still echoed through the floors like laughter behind my back. The air up there was stale, like a sealed secret. The light bulb flickered when I pulled the chain. I hadn't been up here in years. But I remember the boxes. There were 4. 3 were filled with the usual. Old clothes, photo albums, tax folders. But the 4th box, it was taped shut. Not with fresh tape, but with yellowed layers. Like someone had sealed it a long time ago and never meant to open it again. It wasn't labeled. Just dusty. Heavy. I sat on the floor, tore the layers back, and lifted the lid. Inside were journals. Stacks of them. My mother's handwriting. And beneath those, a bundle of envelopes. Bank statements. And, at the bottom, a manila folder that didn't belong to any of us. I opened it, and the blood in my chest stopped moving. It was a legal document. My name at the top. A signature at the bottom. And in bold across the page, revocation of custodial trust, effective immediately. There was a date. 7 years ago. The day after my deployment. I froze. This wasn't about the $256,000. This went deeper. 7 years ago, when I left the country, I handed over temporary custodianship of my finances to my mom, just until I got settled. Turns out, she filed a revocation notice behind my back. She claimed I gave up the rights permanently, that I transferred control of every asset to her for estate simplification. She even forged my initials. And it had been active all this time, meaning every decision, every locked account, every unexplained glitch I dealt with for years wasn't the glitch. It was deliberate. My own mother legally locked me out of my own future. I sat there shaking, not crying, just trembling with rage and clarity. The journals were next. I flipped through one. Her handwriting was neat, precise. She wrote about the house, about my sister's kids, but mostly about me. Jenna's too soft. She doesn't understand family comes first. She'll never use the money wisely. She's a dreamer. I'm just doing what's best. She'll thank me one day. I laughed, sharp and bitter. Thank her? She stole my trust, my security, my peace, and turned it into a condo with ocean-facing windows. I pulled out my phone, took photos of every page, every statement, every signature. Then I emailed it all to myself, backed it up to the cloud, and copied it to a private legal folder I created 6 months ago, just in case. Because they thought they played their final card. They didn't know I had the whole deck. Downstairs, I made coffee, sat at the kitchen island, looked around one last time. This wasn't my home anymore. It was a crime scene. But now I had proof. And not just of what they did, but of what I was about to do. Because the condo, the one they bought with my stolen money, it wasn't paid in full. It had a mortgage, one tied to my name, one I now had every legal right to call into question. And I would. They thought I wouldn't fight back, that I'd just crumble, take the hit like I always had. The responsible one. The one who kept the peace. The one who wired money without asking questions. But they didn't know I'd kept receipts. Every deposit, every withdrawal, every email where Mom said, just help your sister get on her feet. Except it wasn't help. It was a setup. The condo wasn't just their dream home. It was my nightmare in bricks. Located downtown. 2 bedrooms. Pool access. A small balcony with a view of the marina. I knew the layout because I was the one who suggested it back when we were just looking for investment properties together. My sister had smiled during the tour. This would be perfect for you after your cafe's up and running. I smiled back then, thought we were dreaming together. Turns out, she meant her version of perfect, and I was just the funding source. I drove by it now, engine off, parked across the street like a ghost visiting the crime scene. A moving van was still outside. My sister stood on the porch, laughing into her phone, wearing one of my old jackets. She looked proud, smug even. I snapped a photo, sent it to my lawyer with the message. This is the property purchased under false custodial control. I have full documentation. I wasn't bluffing anymore. I wasn't begging. I was done. But just as I was about to pull away, my phone buzzed. Another text. From her. Hey. I heard you came home early, LOL. Sorry we weren't there. Things just got crazy with the move. You know how it is. Let's do dinner this weekend. 2 hearts. Bring wine. Bring wine. After stealing $250,000, my sister wanted me to bring wine. I didn't reply. I just smiled. Because the next message she'd receive wouldn't come from me. It would come from the bank. Because I'd spent the last 24 hours doing more than crying in attics. I froze the asset, filed a fraud report, submitted every legal document, bank trail, and notarized proof that the down payment on the condo had been siphoned from my trust without permission, using a revoked custodial agreement filed with falsified initials. They bought a condo on a sandcastle foundation, and the tide was coming in. The house I'd listed, my house, was already in escrow. The buyer was clean, paid above asking. I'd transferred that money directly into a new secure account, under a trust my family didn't even know existed. No more shared logins. No more emergency access. Just me, and boundaries they couldn't cross. That night, I got another text. This time from Mom. Honey, we really need to talk. It's not what you think. We were always planning to pay it back.
Sure.
After what? The condo appreciated? After I moved on and forgot? I didn't reply. Instead, I emailed a copy of the forged trust revocation to the district fraud unit. Because this wasn't a misunderstanding. It was premeditated theft. And, the worst part? They hadn't even tried to hide it. They thought I'd never fight back. Because I was the good daughter. But they forgot. Even the good ones burn when pushed far enough. And I wasn't just fighting back anymore. I was going to take everything. The official freeze on the condo account hit at 9:12 a.m. sharp. By 9:47, my sister was blowing up my phone like it was a ticking bomb. Jenna, what did you do? They froze the payment.
We have a deadline.
Are you insane? I didn't reply.
I just watched the panic bloom.
From the safety of my new account, one under a separate trust, independent from anything tied to them, I tracked the legal chain like someone watching a live show. The mortgage company had flagged the down payment as disputed. The title company was pausing transfer of deed. The condo was now stuck in limbo. And my sister? She was about to learn the difference between an upgrade and a heist. I spent that day in a cafe downtown. Not the one I dreamed of opening. Not yet, but a quiet place where the coffee was strong and no one called me ungrateful for wanting space. My lawyer called mid-afternoon. We've filed the fraud complaint. If the bank sides with you, which they likely will, the condo sale is void. Unless they can pay the $256,000 back immediately. I smiled into my coffee. They couldn't. They'd already posted about the move on social media. Starting fresh. Condo life. My mom's Facebook had a post that said, "So proud of my girls. Work hard, dream big." Work hard? I worked hard. They just took big. That evening, I finally picked up my sister's 10th call. Her voice was frantic. Okay, Jenna, we can talk now. You've made your point. But you're ruining everything. Don't do this to the kids. There it was. The guilt card. They always saved it for last. I didn't do this, I said quietly. You did. The moment you forged my initials. The moment you spent my future on your lifestyle. We didn't think you'd notice, she snapped, then caught herself. I mean, we thought you wouldn't mind. You weren't even using it yet. Wasn't even using it yet. Like a savings account is only real when they approve of its purpose. You stole, I said coldly. Don't wrap it in birthday bows. She went quiet. Then came the words I'd been waiting for.
Fine.
We'll return it. But just stop the process. Don't take this from us.
Us.
They always came in packs. My sister. My mother. The collective entitlement. But not once did anyone say sorry. Not, we regret this. Not, you didn't deserve it. Just, don't take this from us. They never saw it as mine. Just something they hadn't gotten their hands on yet. I ended the call without a word. By the next morning, my lawyer had filed the intent to pursue civil charges. The penalty? Repayment in full or seizure of the asset. And because I had screenshots of messages, forged documents, and a notarized record of my original custodial agreement, they didn't have a leg to stand on. They'd moved in too early. Furnished a condo they didn't own. Posted proof of occupancy. They thought they were smart. But they didn't count on me doing what I always do, keeping records, staying calm, and hitting back harder. They stole my birthday. I gave them a court date. And I wasn't done. Because in one of the journals I found in that attic, there was something else. Something about a second account. And a secret my mother never meant for anyone to uncover. She thought I'd never find it. Buried in the middle of journal number 6, written in her careful, looping script, right after a long-winded rant about how I was too dramatic and how I never understood sacrifice. There it was. Transferred $38,000 from Jenna's secondary account today. She never checks that one, too busy playing hero overseas. Secondary account. My fingers went cold. Because I'd forgotten about it too. It was the old joint savings my grandmother opened for me when I turned 18. For emergencies, she said. We added my mother's name to it for convenience. But I stopped using it after grad school. The balance wasn't large, maybe $50,000 at the time. Turns out, that made it easy pickings. I logged in for the first time in years. The balance? $1,281.04. I scrolled. The withdrawals started 6 years ago. Small at first, $500 here, $1,200 there. Then came the big ones. $12,000 in a single week. $9,600 marked as education loan repayment. $3,000 tagged mom's medical. I remember that week, she had a cold. And then the one that matched her journal. $38,000, property management fees. Except there was no property. Just a family that treated my accounts like a buffet line. I felt nauseous. This wasn't about the condo anymore. This was a pattern, a lifestyle built on robbing me while calling it love. I printed every statement, highlighted each fraudulent withdrawal, added it to the file already growing fat on my lawyer's desk. When I brought it in the next morning, he whistled. "You're not just looking at civil fraud anymore. This is financial abuse. Possibly embezzlement. From your own mother," he added softly, like it might hurt more. But it didn't. Because I'd already buried the version of her I grew up trusting. She was gone the moment she chose convenience over consent. I walked out of that office with a folder full of fire. And a heart that had stopped hoping for closure. I didn't want an apology. I wanted accountability. The condo had been flagged. Their loan application was voided. Escrow was now frozen, and legal proceedings were underway. But I wasn't stopping there. Because in those journals, in my mother's tidy little archive of deceit, I found one more thing.
A name.
One I hadn't heard in years. Spoke to Marvin today. He says if Jenna ever finds out, we'll just say it was a gift. He'll back us. Marvin. My godfather. The family accountant. I thought he'd disappeared after the divorce from his wife. Turns out, he was the silent facilitator behind it all. I picked up the phone and called him. He answered like nothing had happened. "Jenna,
I was just thinking about you."
"How's New York?" "It's California now," I said. "And I know what you did." Silence. Then a shallow laugh. "You'll have to be more specific. $256,000 for the condo. $38,000 from my secondary account.
And you backed it.
You're going to testify, or you're going to burn with them." Silence again. "I was just helping your mom. She said you approved it." I didn't respond. I just emailed him a copy of the forged document, with a timestamp, with my real signature below for comparison. Then I added, "You've got 24 hours to respond. After that, I report you directly to the state board." This wasn't revenge. This was the audit they never expected. They turned my birthday into a grave. I was about to turn it into their trial. I always imagined my 30th birthday would be filled with light, friends, laughter, maybe even a soft jazz playlist playing under a string of fairy lights in my backyard. Instead, I was sitting across from my lawyer, signing subpoenas. And the only music playing was the rhythmic clicking of my pen against the edge of the table. The legal storm had begun. Marvin cracked first. 12 hours after I sent the email, he responded with a shaky voicemail. "I had no idea the documents were forged. I was told you consented. I'll cooperate fully. Please don't go public." I smiled. One down.
And now?
The paper trail exploded wide open. Marvin submitted access logs from the transfers. And guess what? All of them traced back to my mother's devices. My sister didn't even try to hide her involvement. Her name was on the condo paperwork as co-borrower. The account linked to it was mine. The gift letter Marvin drafted? Another forgery. The entire scheme was unraveling, and I was the one holding the scissors. Mom tried one last time. She called me the night before the hearing. "You don't have to do this," she said, her voice the softest it had been in years. "We're family, Jenna. You know I didn't mean harm. We just needed help." "You mean you needed control?" I said. "You didn't ask. You just took."
"We raised you," she snapped.
"How can you treat your mother like a criminal?" "Maybe because you acted like one."
Click.
I didn't sleep much that night. But for the first time, I didn't feel guilt tangled in my chest. Just resolve. At 10 a.m. the next day, I stood in the courtroom, not as a broken daughter, not as the quiet provider, but as a plaintiff. The judge read over the documentation, the forged trust revocation, the siphoned savings, the illegal condo transaction. Marvin's statement was key. He admitted he never verified my consent, just assumed it based on family ties. The judge's words were cold, firm. This was not a misunderstanding. This was calculated financial exploitation, and it will be treated as such. My mother looked small sitting across the room, her designer coat hanging awkwardly on her shoulders. My sister? Red-eyed, arms crossed, muttering under her breath. But I didn't look away, because for the first time in my life, they had to face me, not the version they controlled, but the one who refused to bend anymore. The ruling? Immediate injunction on the condo. Repayment of $256,000 plus interest. Restitution of the secondary account. Full balance. Adjusted for fraud. Criminal charges pending further investigation. The courtroom emptied in silence, except for one reporter who whispered, "Hell of a birthday gift, huh?" I gave a small nod. Because yes, it was. Not in the way I wanted. Not with candles or cake. But with justice. With air finally filling my lungs. With the weight I'd carried for years finally crashing down behind me instead of on top of me. That night, I walked through the city alone. No party. No noise. Just me. And peace. I stopped by a bakery. Bought a single cupcake. Lit one tiny candle. And whispered, "Happy birthday, Jenna." Then I blew it out. Not for wishes, but for closure. After the courtroom dust settled, I went back to the house one last time. Not to mourn it, not to relive it,
But to finish something.
the sale had finalized. The buyer, a retired vet and his wife, had requested early access. I agreed immediately. Let them build something where my trust had been turned to ash. I walked through the rooms slowly. The silence wasn't painful anymore. It was honest. No voices. No begging. No guilt pressing on my chest like a stone. Just light pouring through the windows. The way it always should have. But then, in the back closet, the one behind the furnace, where old photo albums used to be stored, I found a box. Taped lazily. Torn on one side. It was full of my things. Old birthday cards. Letters from college. A scrapbook I made when I was still dreaming out loud to my family. One of the letters inside was from my grandmother. Don't let them take your softness and call it weakness. She always knew. Underneath that letter was a journal. One of mine. The kind I stopped keeping when I realized everyone in the house would read it without permission. I flipped through pages filled with hope. Business plans. Sketches for my cafe. Budgets. Paint swatches. Logo ideas. And then, a folded sheet tucked into the back pocket. An email printout. From my mother to Marvin. 6 years ago. I don't care if she gets upset. She always forgives. Use the account. We'll call it a family emergency later. No more doubt. No more what-ifs. I took a photo, closed the box, and walked out without a word. Back at my new apartment, the energy was different.
Clean.
Sincere. No one walking through my space uninvited. No whispers outside my door. No one asking for just one more loan. Just me, ledger curled up on the windowsill, and the sound of rain on the glass. My cafe dream? It was alive again. I'd filed the business license.
Picked a space.
Downtown.
Cozy.
Exposed brick. I named it Second Draft. A place for people who'd been through their first story and wanted to write a better one. And I wasn't just building it for me anymore. I was building it for everyone who'd ever been used under the mask of love. The insurance payout came in next. Compensation for the fraud. Bank error reversals. Civil settlement. I donated part of it to a scholarship fund for first-gen college students who had to support their families while chasing their dreams. Because I knew what it felt like to carry everyone else and still be told it wasn't enough. My sister? She sent me one final message. "You've ruined our lives." I hope it was worth it. I didn't respond. Because it was worth it. Not because I wanted to ruin them, but because I needed to reclaim me. My mother didn't reach out again. Not after the ruling. Not after the accounts were frozen. Not even after her name hit the fraud registry. She was silent, finally. And that silence was the loudest apology I'd ever get. I opened my new cafe with a small, quiet ribbon cutting. No fanfare. No cameras. Just a chalkboard that said, "To the ones who lost everything and still found their voice, this space is yours." And in that moment, I knew I hadn't lost my birthday. I'd just redefined it. The cafe opened quietly on a Thursday. No marketing blitz. No grand announcement. Just me unlocking the doors at 7 a.m., the scent of fresh ground coffee drifting onto the sidewalk, and a small vase of white lilies on the corner table, the ones my grandmother used to plant. Second Draft was more than a name. It was a declaration of starting over, of writing your own story, even when the first version was torn apart by the people who claimed they loved you. By 8:15 a.m., we had our first customer, an older woman with a laptop and tired eyes. She asked if she could stay for a few hours. I told her she could stay all day. By noon, a young student asked if we offered discounts for people who couldn't afford full meals. I handed her a muffin, smiled, and said, "Your story matters. Eat first." Every chair in that cafe was placed with intention. Every corner was a reminder that I had built something with my own hands after everything they took. No more stolen birthdays. No more silence framed as obedience. I wasn't a provider anymore. I was a creator. And I didn't need applause. Just space. Space they never gave me, but I now gave to others. Later that afternoon, I received a letter in the mail. No return address. Just my name, again, in familiar handwriting. Inside was a single photo.
Me.
Age 10. Sitting on the floor of our old house, surrounded by birthday balloons, cake on my nose, laughing like the world hadn't taught me caution yet. On the back, in my mother's script, "You were always the brightest thing in every room. I didn't deserve you. I see that now. I hope, one day, you'll understand why I failed. But even if you don't, I'm proud of you, Mom." I stared at the photo for a long time, and I realized something. Her words didn't make me forgive. They didn't fix anything. But they weren't for that. They were simply hers. Finally. Without spin. Without manipulation. A flicker of truth, even if late. And me? I didn't need her pride. I had my own now. But maybe, just maybe, that letter meant I wasn't the only one who changed. I placed it in a drawer. Not to keep.
Just to let rest.
Because this chapter wasn't about revenge anymore. It was about release. 6 months later, Second Draft made the local paper. A cafe built on ashes and turned into gold. That's what the headline read. Customers left notes on napkins. I had nowhere to go. This place saved me. Thank you for reminding me I'm not invisible. I came here after losing everything. Now I've started again. And one afternoon, a woman walked in wearing a plain blue sweater and glasses too big for her face. She didn't order anything. She just stood near the counter and said, "Your place that's beautiful. I'm glad you made it." I nodded. My heart knew before my brain did. It was my aunt, Mom's sister. The one who left town 20 years ago after falling out no one ever explained. She handed me an envelope. No words. Inside was a check, a small one, not flashy, and a note. "She kept everything. Even your father's share. I thought you should know." And beneath that, a single line. Truth doesn't always come loud. Sometimes it knocks, waits, and walks in when it's safe. I looked around the cafe. The laughter. The light. And for the first time, I whispered to myself, "I'm safe now." That was the real gift. Not the money. Not the